Welcome to the technical track. We have chat box open, so if you have any questions, just type in and we'll answer. So my name is Juha Högmander, and I have privilege to host you through this 1 hour session of technical demos, first of all, and then feature highlights and threat landscape update. Today, of course, we will focus to F-Secure elements. I'm super excited myself about bringing out a real unified experience. And this is just the beginning of our journey with F-Secure elements. Everything we introduce today will be added value for you, our partners, on top of what we already have. Already today, we beat our competition by fully integrating our vulnerability management with our patch management and award-winning endpoint protection and our MITRE leader-grade EDR technology. But we won't stop there. We deliver our vision, a true situational awareness, so that companies can operate in this all-digital world where everything is logged on and plugged in without fear of losing their digital liberty. We deliver the vision, feature by feature, release by release. We absolutely will not stop ever. So let me introduce our first speaker, Christine Peierasku, Vice President from Tactical Defense Unit. She will talk about threat landscape update.
Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening, whichever part of the world you're tuning in from, and welcome. Today, I will be sharing information related to the different threats out there and our product's visibility of those threats. The theme will revolve around emails because email continues to be a major infection vector in the past few years, up until today. In order to understand what are the threats in the email landscape, we have spam traps. And spam traps have the capability to receive emails from different threat actors who harvest emails from all over the internet. And during the first quarter of this year, we have seen a spike of emails that pretend to be replies to an existing thread. This means that if you see the RE prefix or equivalent to the language setting that you have, that is essentially what a reply chain looks like. And why is this notable? This illustrates that the threat actors are continuously evolving even with their social engineering techniques. And a recipient of an email, I would be less suspicious of an email that appears to be already part of an ongoing conversation, as opposed to a completely fresh one. There was a 12,000% increase on reply chain themes, which dwarfed the other subjects here. But if we remove the reply chain emails, purchase order, invoice, quotation, and shipping emerge as top topics for malicious spam. Now, if you observe this graph, from January to February, it appears that purchase order and quotation subjects were increasing, but they tapered down during February to March, while at the same time, invoice and shipping were then increasing. Is there some logic here? Is this supposed to be a social engineering technique as well? That first, the organization will receive quotations and purchase orders, and then afterwards, they will get the invoice, and then the product or the service is shipped. Maybe, or maybe this is also just a coincidence, but the correlation does make you wonder. Unpacking the threats that come in via spam traps, first we see phishing threats. And during the first quarter of this year, generic phishing has been increasing. So looking at the phishing for more specific top targets, we can see representation from different sectors. We have social media, which is represented by Facebook, and then WhatsApp that represents messaging. And acquiring the target's credentials for such platforms is valuable to the attacker because it shows them who are your contacts and who is in your network. And this could be the starting point for a more targeted attack towards that individual or towards their contacts. We also see Outlook and Office 365, both of which have the capability to get into the victim's emails, documents, and other information that could also be used for reconnaissance, data theft, or even extortion. And of course, the classic, which are banks, direct to where the money is. The brands here represent the tip of the iceberg. Nowadays, if there's a particular login information that can be phished, it will be phished. And even if the phishing actor does not directly want the information themselves, they can sell these credentials in bulk in the dark web, in case there are other malicious actors who are interested. Now, let's look deeper into the type of threats delivered as attachments of these malicious emails from our spam traps. First, we have generic detections for attachments inside archives. Those are Trojan malicious attachment, heuristic Uragen, Trojan malpacker. And within these generic detections are threat families. So for example, you can see here that we even have Agent Tesla or Formbook, which you can also see like within this graph. And we also see here that there are two ways to use Microsoft Office documents in order to deliver a malicious payload. So the first way is by exploiting a vulnerability. And one detection here, the one with the CVE number, is an example of detection of documents that launch these exploits. And then the second method is by using the macro functionality that's built into Microsoft Office. The heuristic macro downloader detection at the bottom of this graph is a generic detection for those macros that download malicious code. And then finally, we have Agent Tesla and Formbook, info stealers which are spammed in high volumes. And some variants of these info stealers are even captured in the generic detections that I already mentioned earlier. So what's left in the more family-specific detections that you see here is only a fraction of the whole Agent Tesla or Formbook story. And info stealers are the most common threats distributed via email today. So back to Agent Tesla. These threats has been rising in the charts even last year. And this particular malware can capture screenshots, can capture keystrokes, copy the content of the clipboard, and even steal credentials from the browser. And it can even act as a remote access Trojan, which means that the attacker can control what they want to steal. So we just talked about emails coming from our spam traps, but sometimes we wonder if the same threats that we have seen in our spam traps are also the ones that make it into our customers, into our common customers' inboxes. We took a look at the detection coming from our cloud protection for Office 365 customers. So once again, we have generic detections. Again, that you can see generic detections for malicious macro downloaders here. We have detection for exploitation of Office vulnerabilities. We have HTML redirector, which is a detection for Office 365 phishing attacks. We have cryptic detection for info stealers inside archives. And then we have Agent Tesla. The data from both the spam traps as well as what our cloud protection for Office 365 customers portray almost the same story. Info stealers are a wide threat, and they are being distributed inside various types of archives, Office documents and exploits, as well as Office documents with malicious macros. And Agent Tesla is a popular threat that is actually hitting our customers' inboxes. But what if the customer does not have a protection in their inbox? All hope is not yet lost. Because while email protection stops the threat at the source, there are other products that can still pick up the slack and protect the customer from the behavior of the threat itself. Last March, we have seen in one of our customer workstations that have the Rapid Detection and Response or RDR product that there was a medium risk broad context detection or BCD, and it mentioned a system or tool misuse. And it was then quickly followed by a severe BCD of the type persistence. It looked pretty serious. So let's take a look at what happened in the summary. First, let's look at the medium risk BCD since that happened first. The summary here tells us that there was an email open in Outlook, and then it had an Excel attachment. And the attachment was then opened. And when the attachment was opened, it launched MSI exec, which is the software that's already part of a Windows operating system and can install MSIs. And MSIs are software packages. And in this scenario, the MSI is coming from a domain called mariotesarolo.com. Now, having an Excel that is already like an email attachment attempt to make an installation in the system by invoking MSI exec is already a very suspicious behavior. But what does this domain, this mariotesarolo.com, contain? At the moment of analysis, we no longer had access to the file, but if we briefly look around the internet, it appears that this location was serving the notorious Agent Tesla. So what did the product do? Let's take a look at the second BCD, the one that had a severe risk. Apparently, MSI exec launched a file which was downloaded into the system and then proceeded to spawn another process called IE install. So what happened? The detection details in the RDR portal paints the complete picture. It appears that the moment these malicious files were dropped, the EPP product picked them up and deleted those files from the disk. So apparently, this customer has both the RDR and EPP products installed, and the customer was safe from Agent Tesla. But Agent Tesla, that's a known threat. What happens when we have no idea what type of threat is being distributed by the threat actor? The vulnerability that you have most likely heard about is the Microsoft Exchange proxy logon vulnerability. And we had a case which was even elevated to F-Secure in order to help check the system if there were still remaining issues with this threat. It begins with a web server worker process launching the command line interpreter, which already clues us in that this device is a Microsoft server. Well, what type of server? Looking into the actual command executed will show that this is an Exchange server, and that this server is calling the Who Am I tool, which shows information related to this machine. Maybe it's nothing suspicious, but maybe this is also the threat actor already trying to perform reconnaissance. But there are other calls that you can see here to the command line interpreter that did not spawn any process at all. And if we look deeper, it was apparently trying to launch PowerShell, which is a powerful built-in tool that supports its own scripting language for Windows. And it appears that DeepGuard, which is the behavior detection engine part of the EPP product, blocked the execution already using a generic detection for PowerShell launches. And looking at the detection details, it appears that the behavior detection that detects malicious PowerShell launches has blocked further execution of malicious code. So after the customer elevated this to F-Secure, there was further investigation that was done, and it appeared that no damage happened to the system because the threat was stopped. And another discovery during investigation was that there were two PowerShell scripts, on one of it, which was deleting an ASPX file, which could indicate that there could have been a web shell that the threat actor was using to launch these malicious scripts in the first place. This is a scenario where the exploitation of the vulnerability was successful and the threat actors managed to get into the system, but the payload was unable to execute. Of course, it would have been better if the server would just have been not vulnerable in the first place. Saw from the news a month later that had this exploitation been successful, this server could have become part of a crypto miner botnet called Prometei. While there are threats that your army of security products and services can protect against, your organization still cannot be complacent. Like our customers' organizations could not be complacent because there are some areas where we still need to understand how exposed our organizations are when it comes to potential security threats or even privacy leaks. Emails, which are heavily used across different organizations, is one platform that needs to be protected quite well. Data leaks via emails have colored the news in the past decade. And during these times, when people are doing remote work, it's not unusual for them to use Outlook Web Access. So in OWA, a user can receive an email with an attachment. And if the user would like to download that attachment, the behavior in the browser would look like this. And I would like to direct your attention to the bottom of this traffic capture screenshot where the hostname attachments.office.net is located. That is the location where the attachment is stored and can be downloaded from. And that's a direct link. And this is a direct link that can be copied and accessible even in a system where the user does not need to authenticate using their organization's credentials. Now, why is this important? It is important because OWA, or Outlook Web Access, is typically accessed from the browser. And thus your organization, or does our customer's organization, monitor and limit what plugins are being installed in our browsers. Plugins have visibility to the same traffic that this traffic capturing tool here can see. And if those plugins are harvesting URL from the browser and then sending those to a remote location, then whoever has access to that remote location could download the files that those URLs are pointing to. So in light of all these threats, what should we do? First, there is no replacement for employees that are aware and updated on the latest security threats. In a world where organizations can get bankrupted by security breach, it pays to ensure that the people who are part of that organization, people who are part of our customers' organization, understand that they are potential target in order to get into those organizations. And so we also need to make sure that the different employees of these organizations are equipped in order to help protect the organization from infiltration, and that their knowledge of threats are updated and they understand the cost of unpatched vulnerabilities. And then when it comes to our devices and all the applications that we have within them, are we really using all of those? How about the plugins that we have in our browsers? What type of role do they perform? What purpose do they serve? Have we ever performed an audit to what plugins are installed in the different browsers of the different organizations that we serve? Or is OWA, for instance, accessible from a particular employee's home computer where the organization cannot know what applications or plugins are installed? And then finally, we have already seen that it pays to have different layers of protection. And we recognize that not every organization has the capability of quickly deploying security patches the moment they get out. So having multiple security layers helps these organizations, our customers' organizations, during this window of opportunity for the attackers. Hopefully this has been informative. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions, please send those over to the live chat. But for now, I will give the floor back to you.
Thank you, Kristin. Next, Element Security Center demo by Teemu Myllykangas, our Director in Product Management.
Thank you, Juha. It is my absolute pleasure to be here because I'm going to present you something really fascinating, the F-Secure Elements Security Center. It is the beating heart of our Elements portfolio, a single pane of glass from which you can deploy, manage, visualize, and respond to any security threat across a wide spectrum of security capabilities ranging from proactive vulnerability management to incident response. Furthermore, the time and resource savings that it brings in managing such an extensive security stack are unprecedented to any security solution out there on the market. In many ways, the F-Secure Element Security Center represents a revolution in the way how you can get an accurate, timely, and broad situational security awareness within any given customer environment, especially in those environments where several security layers are present in order to maximize the security and protection across multiple layers of the kill chain. Today, we're going to take a look at one such example among the many possibilities offered by the F-Secure Element Security Center. Specifically, we're going to look at the attack that Kristin mentioned earlier and how you can ensure protection and incident response against such an attack, and how the situational security awareness provided by the F-Secure Element Security Center will significantly and drastically improve the security and efficiency of responding to such an attack. And without further ado, I'll close my video so that it doesn't disturb your view of the demo and the portal, and thus let's get going.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the F-Secure Elements Security Center. What you see now on the screen is a company-level dashboard, which is the center of the Elements experience for each of your customers. From this view, you can easily see the security status, what actions are needed in order to maintain that security, how to improve the security posture, and how to respond to security incidents. Furthermore, this view gives you a quick understanding of the potential security anomalies in the company, made possible only by the way how the Elements portal shows the aggregated data on the dashboard. The dashboard itself shows the relationship of the different kinds of security events, detections, and security data coming from the various protection layers. This kind of view is imperative for gaining an efficient situational security awareness, especially when responding to attack. And in today's case, we're taking a look at the attack that Christine mentioned earlier, in which the CFO of the company we're currently managing got owned by an email-based ransomware attack and data exfiltration. The attack happened via a phishing email related to their ongoing recruitment efforts, which had a malicious attachment and payload, and which eventually took advantage of a vulnerability on the CFO's laptop, leading to a compromise and data exfiltration by using a ransomware as a cover. Today, we're looking at how you can protect against such an attack proactively or how to respond to the attack in case it is already imminent. First, we're going to take a look at the phishing email that had the attachment itself. And as you can see, it is already highlighted by the dashboard of the F-Secure Elements Security Center. In order to take a look at it, we simply need to click this link and we can access the detailed data related to the email protection. Here we see the email protection part of the F-Secure Elements Security Center, where we can drill down deeper into the phishing email that the CFO received. Now, I would like to point out how easy it was to jump from the high-level view to the more detailed view, which focuses on the email security threat itself. Now, this is simply one of the detailed views in the portal, which include endpoint security view, vulnerability management view, and an incident detection and response view. We'll take a look at all of them later, but next, let's drill down now to the email security threat first. And as we can see, the F-Secure Elements has already been scanning a lot of items, including files, URLs, and calendar invites, and has even detonated some of the detections in our proprietary sandbox called SandViper. By checking the link here, we can take a look at the attack against the CFO specifically. As we can see, there has been several attack attempts already, the latest being a phishing email related to the company's ongoing recruitment efforts. Let's take a closer look at that detection as well. Here we can see that the email was blocked, quarantined, and a notification was sent to the admin. It also shows the block reason, really. The email is unique, it is unknown, and it was analyzed to be unsafe, so F-Secure Elements prevented the attack. With the additional information that you can see here, like the SHA-1 identifier of the attachment, you can quickly verify whether other people in the organization have gotten the same file via email or whether it is present in some other endpoint. This allows you to understand whether it is part of a wider attack against the organization or a more targeted attack against a single target, which is extremely valuable in gaining proper contextual security awareness. Similarly, in order to understand whether there is another security risk related to the CFO's email, let's check whether the account has been part of any data breaches recently. Now, this is a really cool feature released some time ago in F-Secure Elements, where you can see whether an account has been part of any data breaches in the past and what kind of information the attackers have available. It seems that the CFO account has indeed been part of several data breaches and necessitated checkup and action to mitigate. The data that you can see here is from various sources, various data breaches really, that have had their data published or shared in the dark web, some of which is not even generally available in the dark web and only visible and available here thanks to the contacts that we have. Now, understanding which accounts are potentially compromised in a data breach, even at some level, is vital in gaining understanding of the security posture that the company has and to be able to take the necessary steps in order to mitigate this risk, such as enabling multi-factor authentication. Now that we have taken a look at the email, let's go check the status of the endpoint security as well. Now, obviously, the original attack would have already ended at this stage thanks to the F-Secure Elements, but let's follow the timeline of the original attack a bit further by assuming that the email security layer would have failed. So let's drill down to the endpoint security part next. Here we see the endpoint security view for the same company. And as you guys know, the endpoint security forms the cornerstone of any modern ID security setup, and FCQ Elements is no different. Here we can drill down deeper into the now hypothetical attack, as it has already been prevented by the email security layer. But assuming that the customer doesn't have such layer or it didn't get detected in it, endpoint security solution would be the next layer to prevent the attack, together with vulnerability management and patch management, but I'll talk about those two later. I'd like to again point out how easy it was to switch context from email security to endpoint security without having to log anywhere, change anything, or switch to a different vendor or UI. Now, anyway, let's drill down to the protection status of the endpoint clients. Here we can see a device, basically the CFO's laptop, which in addition to malware detection has an indication of missing critical security updates, which was the reason for the success of the original attack and the automatic isolation from the detection response in the FCQ Elements agent. But again, more of those two later as well. So let's check the CFO's laptop and the security events that have happened there. And lo and behold, here's an alert for the security event where the endpoint security has blocked the malicious email attachment that came via the CFO's laptop. Obviously, you can also see a lot of other detections and blocks on the screen as well, which are related to the follow-up steps and attacks that the attacker did once they gained the initial foothold and compromise of the CFO's laptop. Here we can also see the same SHA-1 as in the previous view in case we want to specifically block this file or take any action against it via other means. Here we see specifically the events of the CFO's laptop, but a company-wide event service is currently being piloted, which will be merging all the security events from all the sources into one single feed, which brings unprecedented visibility to the security-related events in a company, thus significantly improving the situational security awareness. Now, I did mention the vulnerabilities earlier, so let's take a look at the patch management view as well. Here we can also see all the missing updates on the CFO's laptop, which shows that it hasn't been properly kept up to date, which, like said, was one of the main reasons why the attacks originally succeeded in the first place. Luckily, the patch management function in the FCQ Elements can automate a lot of the simple software patching, which saves a ton of time from any IT manager. As for the more advanced vulnerability management capabilities, we can check the next drill down view, which specifically is made for the vulnerability management data. And like previously, we only need to switch the view from here with a single click. Now we are at the vulnerability management view of the FCQ Elements Security Center. And as we can directly see from the dashboard already, we can see that the CFO's laptop has been very, very badly maintained, despite it being flagged as a critical asset based on the CIA model's confidentiality rating shown by the 5C rating here. It is no wonder then that the attack has had an easy time gaining traction in the system, considering that there are so many critical vulnerabilities in the environment in the first place. Now, when we use the asset management view to drill down even deeper to the CFO's laptop, we can see that it has also a number of open ports and a long list of vulnerabilities that have been neglected. Furthermore, many of the vulnerabilities have publicly available exploit code, as indicated by this icon here, making it super simple for the attackers to exploit these vulnerabilities. I would also actually like to highlight the fact that this information presented on the screen is actually coming from the FCQ Elements agent, which only recently got a vulnerability management module to it, in addition to the current endpoint security and detection and response modules. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is simply amazing because it means that you can basically deploy 3 security solutions in one go without having to do multiple installations or setups. This, when combined with the tremendous time and resource savings provided by the FCQ Elements Security Center, basically ensures that managing multiple security solutions will only take a fraction of the time it would normally take with a similar setup with different point solutions. Now, that is just amazing, I can tell you. However, my dear friend and colleague Harri Ruusinen is going to tell you more about the fascinating FCQ Elements agent in the next session. So I don't want to steal his thunder at all, so I'll leave the agent to him. Anyways, let's continue by taking a deeper look at the specific vulnerability present on the CFO's laptop. Now, this is only one of the vulnerabilities present on the CFO's laptop, but it is imperative sometimes to understand the details in order to better understand the attack and how to mitigate it. For example, for this specific Adobe Reader vulnerability, there are just tons of ready-made public exploit code just waiting to be used by the attackers, making patching of these vulnerabilities a very high priority. This is especially true in this case because the CFO needs to use the Adobe Reader to open email attachments such as job applications in order to do his or her job, which, as you already know from the previous examples, was used by the attackers to get the ransomware to the target device in the first place. Understanding these kinds of detailed nuances about the customer's environments, its users and devices gives you extremely valuable information when it comes to gaining proper situational security awareness of your customer's security status and posture. Anyway, let's continue further on with the attack still. Now, obviously, the FCQ Elements has already had multiple stages in the kill chain where we could have prevented and stopped the attack completely. This includes blocking the malicious email, blocking the malicious attachment by using our endpoint heuristic and behavior analysis and its built-in ransomware protection module, in addition to patching the actual vulnerability that was being exploited. Obviously, for the attack to proceed, we need to continue to assume that the customer either didn't have any of the aforementioned security measures in place or for some reason or the other, they failed to detect the attack. Now, luckily, this is exactly the reason why the detection and response module in the FCQ Elements exists. Its purpose is to detect and contain attacks that have bypassed other security measures before they have time to cause any major damage or remain undetected in the system while propagating and exfiltrating data. Next, we'll jump to the detection and response view in which we can show this kind of an attack and how it can be detected and contained and later investigated. And like always, it is as simple as just clicking one icon. Now we are at the detection and response view of the FCQ Elements Security Center, and as we can see, there are a number of detections on the CFO's laptop already relating to the attack chain we have just looked at. And let's drill down deeper in the attack straight away. What we can see here, after gaining the initial foothold the system, the attacker really has been doing a lot of things, including doing lateral movement, doing privilege escalation, and he has even gained persistence on the CFO's laptop. And on further analysis, for example, in this detection, we can clearly see that the attacker has entered via Outlook using the attachment we saw earlier and then running PowerShell to conduct various malicious actions in the network. At this stage of the attack, there is not yet much damage done, all data exfiltrated, so detecting the attack at an early stage like this, thanks to the detection and response module of the FCQ Elements, allows you to minimize the cost and damages of the attack, whether measured in time, money, or lost data. Now, obviously, detecting an attack is only half of the story, so FCQ Elements also offers automatic response actions, in this case, an automatic host isolation from the network and the internet. This configurable automatic response action essentially breaks the attacker's connection to the endpoint and stops the attack from spreading further in the network, allowing you to respond to attack at your leisure. Now, responding to some attacks obviously may require deeper analysis and guidance by specialized cybersecurity experts. And if you cannot resolve an incident after your analysis, you can always elevate the incident to F-Secure for help in resolving the detection and getting instructions on how to respond to it. My dear colleague Leszek is going to tell you more about the F-Secure element later, so I'm again not going to steal his thunder either, so stay tuned for his awesome show as well. Now then, on the other hand, if you have the skills available, I have the pleasure to announce that we have today released an event search functionality which allows you to view all the raw data coming from the sensors, allowing you to do proactive threat hunting in your customer's environment. And as you can imagine, the data available is simply staggering, but for a skilled threat hunter, finding signals and potential compromises is easy and efficient thanks to the powerful search and filtering tools available in the event search functionality. The very same functionality also allows you to dig deeper into the events behind the detections you just saw as well, making any investigation to them more comprehensive and deeper.
As you saw, what it offers you is a single pane of glass from which you can deploy, manage, visualize, and respond to any security threat across a wide spectrum of security capabilities, ranging from proactive vulnerability management to detection and response capabilities. Also, the time and resource savings it brings you in managing such an extensive security stack are unprecedented to any security solution out there on the market. And even better is the accurate, timely, and broad situational security awareness that it brings across all the relevant stages of a cybersecurity kill chain, enabling you to provide extremely good security to your customers effectively, easily, and all within one single console, agent, and vendor. With this, I conclude my part, but I'm certain our local F-Secure representatives are more than happy to tell you more about the F-Secure Element Security Center. And with this, I give the stage back to Juha, so go get them, Tiger.
Thank you, Teemu. Next feature highlight, F-Secure Elements Vulnerability Management demo by Harri Ruusinen, our Director in Global Sales Engineering.
Hi partners and welcome to this breakout session. Now we are focusing to F-Secure Elements Agent. In Teemu's presentation, you saw F-Secure Elements Security Center. How can you manage all those devices through one single management console? In Kristi's presentation, you saw the current threat landscape and what kind of capabilities you need to have that you can block the current cyber threats. You need to have capabilities to prevent, you need to have capabilities to detect and also respond. So it's really important that you have endpoint detection and response capabilities in your agent. You have endpoint protection capabilities, but now it's here. We also have vulnerability management capability in a one single Elements agent. Why it's important? It's always cheaper to block those threats in the earliest possible phase. So if we can remove those vulnerabilities, if we can minimize the attack surface, then that is something that we should do. So what does this mean in practice? When you deploy F-Secure Elements agent, you can pick and choose that what are those capabilities that you want to enable. That's really easy to enable endpoint protection, endpoint detection and response, and now you can also enable this vulnerability management. So after you have deployed this one agent, then you will get the data to Elements Security Center where you can manage all these capabilities. So what attacker is looking for? Attackers are looking for a way to execute code on a target machine. And there are two ways how attacker can do it. First one is that, of course, they can lure a user and say that, hey, here's the new program that you need to install your computer. Or the second way is that attacker will use a vulnerability and then everything is happening automatically. And of course, we don't want that kind of thing is happening. And for attacker, one vulnerability is enough. That's our challenge. If we take year 2020, and in one single year, we had more than 18,000 new vulnerabilities. And let's pick one of those. For example, Microsoft RDP vulnerability. What does it mean when this kind of vulnerability exists? So it will take over 3 months for companies to remediate that one. So when the patch is released to that vulnerability, it will take 3 months until that is deployed to all those devices. The challenge is that attackers, they are moving really fast. They are actually utilizing that vulnerability after 1 week. So what can we do? We need to have vulnerability management process, and it really needs to be a process that we will continue all the time. It's not okay that we will just patch those computers one time and then we are good. We need to repeat the process all the time. And what is the process? So the first step is that we need to understand what kind of assets we have in the network. Second thing is that then we need to start scanning those assets. We need to scan those devices. We need to scan those applications so we know that what kind of vulnerabilities we have in the environment. The next phase is that then we need to start that patching process. We need to make sure that all vulnerabilities are gone. Those are assigned to right people that they can start this remediation. And the next phase is then that we need to validate that. That's really important that we can be sure that we don't have those vulnerabilities anymore in the environment. And of course, we need to have evidence and reports, for example, auditing purposes, that what has happened. So let's dive into this vulnerability management capability in F-Secure Elements Agent. Traditionally, how you will scan those vulnerabilities, you will use scan nodes. You have cloud scan node that you can start scanning your public-facing internet assets like your web servers, mail servers, and then you have private scan nodes that you can deploy to your Linux or Windows device, and then you will start scanning your internal networks. But now, what we will have is that we have this Elements agent-based scanning capability. So after you have deployed this F-Secure Elements agent, then you have this vulnerability management data immediately available in your portal. So we can do this vulnerability scanning, so we can find all vulnerabilities. We can also see open network ports. So for example, we can see that, hey, there is that Windows RDP open on that device. Maybe we should do something to that one. We can see all installed applications on those devices. We can see the version numbers. And of course, we can see if that application includes some vulnerabilities that we need to patch it. And also hardware information, that's important as well. We can see network interfaces and other information regarding the hardware. And then we can prevent, of course, those unauthorized software and hardware by using other Elements capabilities. So how to get started? This is the best part. You just click one single button. You select the device and then you say that, okay, I want to enable this vulnerability scanning for this specific device. And then you will start to get data to Elements Security Center, and then you can use your vulnerability management process. So let me show you a demo that how it really works. So now we are in Elements Security Center where we can see all this vulnerability management data. So let's go to device discovery. And here we can see all devices where my F-Secure Elements agent is installed. And I have already enabled this vulnerability management capability to 2 devices. So let's enable this to this first device as well. So this was the button that I just told you, enable scanning. Bam. Do you want to enable it? Yes. So let's go to assets. And now you can see that my device is already here on the list. It doesn't include vulnerability data yet. So I will open another device here. Let's pick this workstation. And here you can see these open ports. You can see, for example, that Microsoft RDP is open on this device. If we scroll down, you can see all vulnerabilities here. You can see that we have a lot of vulnerabilities on this host. We can see flags that we have public exploit available for these vulnerabilities. So definitely you should patch these in the first place. We can open these vulnerabilities and we can see more information and links to CVE database where you can see. And also we can see other things like here, this device actually requires reboot. So we have a lot of different kind of things that we need to fix on this device. So let's then check software tab. So here you can see all installed software, all those applications, version numbers, and then you can see that if this software includes some vulnerabilities. We have hardware information. You can see all network interfaces and hardware information regarding this device. So let's go back to the asset list. And here we can see the device where I enable this vulnerability management capability. And now you can see that we have this vulnerability data already in the portal. So let's summarize a bit. What kind of value this agent-based scanning will bring you? You just saw that how easy it is to use this F-Secure Elements agent and enable this vulnerability management capability. So let's check that what value this really brings you. So the first one is that you can see all the time, so you have this continuous visibility to all your devices that what is the status regarding vulnerabilities. And especially now during the COVID time when people are working remotely more than ever before, it's super important that you have this visibility all the time. It doesn't matter what is the network where this device is at the moment. You have that visibility all the time. So the next one is deployment. So how fast can you start this vulnerability management? And now it was just one button that you will click, and after minutes you will start to get that vulnerability management data to your Element Security Center. You don't need to do any network changes. If you have restricted networks, you don't need to think about installing multiple scan nodes. When you have this agent installed, then you will get the data. The next one is that we want to get all information fast to the Element Security Center. We don't need to think about authentication, for example. If you do this network-based scanning, you need to think that, okay, what is the user account that I can get the data from those devices? Now, when Elements agent is installed and you're using this agent-based scanning, then all the data comes to the portal, for example, every 4 hours. So last but not least, if you want to start offering this vulnerability management to your customers, we are here for you. So let's do this together. We have this service design service that we can go through together, that what does it mean when you want to start offering vulnerability management as a service. Thank you very much. And now back to Juha.
Thank you, Harri. Last but not least, Leszek, our Vice President in Business Security Business Unit R&D. Leszek Tasiemski will talk about Element services. What happens when you click F-Secure Elevate?
Thank you, Juha. Hello and welcome. This session is dedicated to Elevate to F-Secure. I will tell you what it is. I will tell you how it works, and you will be able to see your detections with the eyes and tools that our analysts are using. But let's start with the concept. Elevate is a service feature. It is built to strengthen our partners and empower you to build your own managed security services on top of F-Secure technology and expertise. By elevating a detection, you request our analysts to have a look and assist you with understanding what the detection was about and whether it's malicious. With Elevate, we are addressing the concept of gaps of a skills gap in cybersecurity. With this feature, you can confidentially offer your services even if your in-house skills are still not at the level where you would like them to be early in the learning curve. And as your expertise grows, you need less and less of Elevate. But of course, it is always there for you, just to make sure that nothing catches you off guard. We believe that Elevate brings the best of both EDR and NDR worlds. You get the benefit of human expert analysis on demand whenever you need it, but you don't need to carry the cost of a full-scale MDR service. One thing to keep in mind is that F-Secure has built the whole detection logic end-to-end in-house. So when you are elevating your detection, you are actually asking the people who build and maintain the detection logic every day to have a look at that. So we have a broad view. Our analysts work on incidents of hundreds of companies every day with all possible verticals, various sizes of companies, and very diverse geography. We see trending attacks. We see what is happening within a given vertical or a region. Now, if we look at how elevation actually works, you can see that there are two levels. We have validation, which is just a basic review of whether your detection is a threat, is it a false positive, or maybe it's just suspicious. And suspicious means that it's not possible during this quick review to determine whether this is a threat or false positive, and further analysis is needed. Then after validation, it is your decision whether you want to move on with a full investigation. So you can request investigation as kind of next level of Elevate, or you want to leave it like it is or continue analysis on your own. When investigation leads to the conclusion that most likely it's a serious breach, you can also request incident response service. It is not part of Elevate service, but F-Secure does incident response, and it is entirely possible to request IR intervention on your specific breach or case through our consultancy unit. Let's have a look at the full process of elevation. Whenever you as a partner spot a broad context detection in the portal and you decide that you would like to get some assistance, some advice, you trigger the elevation. Usually within some minutes, our investigation team, so our analysts, they do acknowledge your request and they start working on that case. We perform the validation, and here you can see an example outcome of the validation. What was actually raised to as a part of elevation to F-Secure is a suspicious execution of AppleScript through open scripting architecture, and then that script was doing some suspicious inter-process communication that can be normal for some processes, but in this case it was unusual. As you can see, the analyst concluded that this behavior looks rather complex and it looks suspicious. So they suggested further investigation, either by the partner or, of course, the investigation request can be triggered. Then if you, as a partner, decide that you want to trigger an investigation, that request comes back to our analysts, and again, you will get acknowledged that the investigation is ongoing. And now we have the result of example investigation. And it seems that a Mac machine with macOS was infected with some adware, which is MacSearch, and it's related with ChiliTap, which is a known malware. The analysts on this example actually encourages you as a partner to also submit a sample to our malware analysis team. And malware analysis team is yet another unit that is only focusing on analyzing and detonating malware. And of course, we can relate those requests. So if you upload or submit a sample for analysis, the analyst that is handling your elevation will see the outcome as well. As you can see on the screenshot on the slide, the flow is neatly integrated into F-Secure Elements EDR portal. So you are in control and you see the progress of your elevation all the time. Now let's have a look at an example of a really complex and big broad context detection. As you can see, that one contains 3 different machines and 65 processes, and it actually generated 255 detections in our backend. So that kind of a beast can be really complex to analyze, and that's completely natural that you would like to elevate a thing like that. And this is an example of a lateral movement detected by Elements EDR, but also the basic detections can be really tricky. One thing to keep in mind that the detection rules are created to capture an attacker's behavior and not a concrete exploitation tool. That design makes them more abstract, but also requires a little bit more understanding to take the right action. But thanks to this principle and this approach, we can detect new attacks with existing logic. Quite often when we see that the new kind of attack is popping up, we figure out that our system can detect those attacks even without touching the detection logic itself. It's because we don't have to know the exact tool or exploitation script, but we just have to observe the activity. Let's have a look at how it looks under the hood. So how our analysts would see your detection and your elevation. To understand what is really happening, you need to think about EDR detection logic as a funnel. We have a lot of raw events coming from your machines and your customers' machines. Those raw events need to be enriched. In the process of enrichment, we add information like reputation, queries, and as much as extra information as we can to the events. Then we have a bunch of machine learning models that try to calculate different scores, like how common such event is, or how common given chain of execution is. And then we have different levels of detection logic rules. And then we score the criticality and the risk in the end. So the analyst would typically first thing make a filtered view with all the detections and raw events that are anyhow related to the elevated broad context detection. So what you can see on the slide is an example of social engineering of the victim with Trojanized OpenVPN installer. And then that malware, that Trojan is using a couple of different command and control servers, out of which one responds. And then we are using fault helper UAC, so user account control system if Windows to bypass the control and get the system level access. As you can see, we, as the analysts, we can see a lot of detail in those detections, far more than there are in the portal. So we can recreate the whole chain, and with plenty of background information about the chain of execution of the processes, we can try to make a sense of the whole tactic used by the attacker. What you can see on the screen is the detection that is telling us that the attacker actually used this FOD helper, well-known Windows 10 exploit that is used for elevating the privileges of the process to elevate or to execute arbitrary Python code, which is kind of like an obvious sign of something going wrong. With that knowledge and with this kind of information, and also with the understanding of the detection logic by our analysts, they can very efficiently and confidently conclude on your detection and whether that detection constitutes a real risk to your customers. Now, thinking about how Elevate will evolve in the future, first of all, we hear your feedback. We also have plenty of our own ideas. Where do we want to take Elevate, and we want to take into the right direction. One of the things that we're planning is broader and deeper collaboration with you, with partners on elevations. We plan to expand elevations beyond just endpoint detection and response to kind of elevate everything concept. But also, our plan is to introduce more collaborative model and share knowledge from just reporting back to you the result of the analysis to analyzing together, so that you and your security experts can learn by doing, and therefore become more and more independent over time. We think that the newly introduced raw events view in Elements EDR will be a huge help, because it will give you far better visibility into the details behind every detection, so you can do some of the analysis and some of the investigation on your own without F-Secure help. And last but not least, we plan to move from prepaid tokens into a full usage-based model when it comes to billing for using Elevate as a service. Now, I hope this quick walkthrough was useful. Please post any questions you might have into chat. I will be there to answer them. Please remember that Elevate is a service feature. It's built to strengthen you, our partners, and empower you to build your own managed security service on top of F-Secure technology and expertise. As your in-house expertise grows, you will need less and less of Elevate, but it will be there for you just in case always. So you can always have our back if that's needed. And the future direction is more flexible, user-based model, the broader scope of the service, and even more emphasis on collaboration and learning by doing with the partner beyond just doing the analysis for you. And with that, I thank you for your time and attention, and over to Juha.
Thank you, Leszek, and everyone for joining. If you have any questions about the discussions today, please see the form on the bottom of the page or contact your local F-Secure team. In addition, we will host local and global technical webinars for you if you want more info and spread the message of our great products. This is the ending of technical track. Please join the session at the main event to see keynotes from Forrester and our very own Mikko Hyppönen. It has been a pleasure. I hope to see you again.
I hope you had a good breakout. It's time for a different type of break. I'm talking, of course, about a bio break. 5-minute bio break coming up right now. I will pour myself a good cup of coffee.
You gotta hold on to There's a heavy weight you've been trying to hold on to, but you can lay it all down with me, 'cause in the end I'm just trying to show you you don't need more pain than misery. And baby, 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 you gotta hold on to what we got and give me, give me, give me all of your love, all of your love. Yeah, baby, 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 you gotta hold on to what we got and give me, give me, give me all of your love, all of your love. 'Cause me and you, we got a good thing going. Don't cast it off. Just let this love keep showing. Yeah. Ooh.
Welcome back. And come to think of it, I don't really feel like coffee anymore. But I do feel like listening to Ashley Clark give the list of nominees for the category Growth Champion.
Thank you, Magnus. And now we're back with the nominees for the Growth Champions. We've got 3 fantastic nominations here. First up, we have Ilian in France, a 7-year partnership with F-Secure, or over 7 years now, and their growth has been phenomenal in the last year, and again, cross-portfolio. Second is with Bytes, where they have done a lot of business with us with cloud protection for Salesforce, and it's been a fantastic 12 months. And lastly, by no means least, Valti Kumpanet, where they have been extremely strong in growing our EDR portfolio in Finland. So we'll be back at the end of the day to go through the nominees and announce the winner. Magnus, back to you.
Thank you, Ashley. Forrester is arguably one of the best sources out there for research and insights about our industry. Now, here to deliver the SPECIES21 keynote, I'd like to introduce Principal Analyst Jay McBain. He's going to talk about market trends and end customer demands for partners. Take it away, Jay.
Well, thank you very much, Magnus, for that great introduction. And I'm pleased to be here today to talk about the future of security, the channel, where we see things going, not only in the next year or so, but maybe over the next decade. Many of the trends that are in place today are now accelerating. The trains are on the tracks, they're picking up speed. We have to decide as entrepreneurs, as channel leaders, as professionals, where we're going to take our businesses, the skills, the practices, and the different types of things that we're going to double click on as we go forward. Looking at the industry as a whole, it's a $3.5 trillion industry. It's large, it's complex, it's growing quickly, and 64% of it is sold through partners today. And if you look at how partners participate overall, it's around 90% of partner assisted. In other words, partners moving with all of these dollars and really adding that value to the clients. So not only is it a big industry, the channel plays an absolute critical role. But when we talk about channels, some major changes are underway. So for the last few years, we've seen a rush of different kinds of partners as every company in every industry becomes a technology company. And what this means is things like digital agencies who call on marketing buyers, who now 78% of them are tech companies. We know that at the end user, some marketing folks now, actually many of them, spend more money on technology than the actual CIO or the technology division. So major changes underway, 81% of accountants. On the left-hand side of this chart, we've seen the growth of about 800,000 emerging tech companies. Internet of Things, AI, automation, blockchain, quantum, VR, MR, AR, all the way down the list. Huge movement in this area. We've grown from 10,000 software companies 10 years ago to 175,000 today. And what I predict will be 1 million 10 years from now. So all of these things are creating a much larger, more complex, more comprehensive channel organization around the world. Also, you look at the customers themselves. It is also getting more complex from a security perspective in an overall IT perspective. I talked about these different line of business buyers. For example, marketing, sales, operations, finance, HR. Well, in many cases, and in 65% of cases, they're leading the technology decisions. They're leading the digital transformation for their companies. It's not coming just out of IT, which is about 1/3. Also, we're not talking at the industry level anymore. It's not about healthcare, for example. It's about a 50-doctor clinic in Scotland. It's about a dentist office. It's about a small hospital. There's 12 sub-industries underneath healthcare. And when you look more broadly, there's 297 security kind of solutions as you look into different industries with different compliance, regulation, legislation, etc. When you look geographically, if you move that clinic from Scotland over to France, over to Germany, over to Singapore, or into the United States, very, very different geographically in terms of how they work and how that solution needs to be formed. If you look across the sector, segment, and size, I said on purpose, 50 doctors, very different solution than you'd bring into a chain or a franchise of dentist offices, for example. So that makes a huge difference. And then obviously, very different enterprise level than you would bring into a large hospital. And then in the categories, we used to look at the market as hardware, software, and services a few years ago. Well, now there's 26 major categories of technology. And you can't have a security conversation today without going 7 layers deeper and then 17 layers below that. That's how complex it's getting. You add in all the partners from the previous Venn diagram, and there's a lot of moving parts here. Well, one thing we do to kind of satisfy all these moving parts is we start with the customer. So at Forrester every year, we interview or survey 690,000 different people. And in those surveys, we obviously ask given where we are in the pandemic, where they're spending money, where their focus areas are. And these were the top 4 that recently we've seen, jump out for customers. They're looking at automation at new levels. They're looking at the pandemic as being a major human-based failure. And they're moving a lot of resources into no-code, low-code platforms, into RPA, which you've seen a huge jump in the last couple of years, a robotic process automation, business process automation. So seeing huge movement there. You've probably been not paying attention if you haven't watched the major growth in cloud across the board, across all of those different customer types. You're seeing Azure grow at 50% levels 4 quarters in a row inside a pandemic. Google Cloud at 46, AWS at 32, massive growth across the SaaS ecosystem. Some of those major players like Salesforce and ServiceNow and Workday and Marketo and NetSuite, all growing in the 30s. Major changes in terms of how customers buy. Well, this is one of the big things that comes back. It's not client server. It's not multi-cloud, hybrid cloud. There's now this new remote topology because of the pandemic. And when we study the future of work, we think upwards of 20 to 30% of people will view work as what they do, not where they go. And in that environment, we're creating this remote topology or big residential network that will need to be secured, will need to be monitored and managed, will need to have different levels of compliance and continuity. All these types of things are creating a huge opportunity for partners. And for many customers, it's too much for them to manage on their own. And then number 4, and finally, they're investing in their own businesses. Every business in every industry was forced to either curbside service or reimagining their customer experience, their employee experience, how they work with partners, e-commerce, marketplaces. All these things are seeing massive growth in every company, in every industry. So I want to finish today with 4 predictions and trends that are happening. Again, I think the train is on the tracks. It's picking up speed. Given the pandemic, it accelerated most of these trends that were happening before. And now for many of us, what might have been back burner type of issues or things we were thinking about now become front burner. So first and foremost, again, let's always start with the customer. In 4 to 5 years from now, the majority buyer of technology and security will be millennial. But other than that, there's different today behavior, psychology, journey that these type of customers are on. And it's important to understand then, for example, 65%, which I mentioned, they're leading many of these transformation. They're leading many of these technology buys. And again, they're not the most skilled people in security or compliance or some of the other areas. They're really solving a business outcome. The other thing matched to that is that 68% of them want to go on a digital or digital only journey. So they're not looking to talk to salespeople at your company, at F-Secure, at anywhere. They're looking to go at it alone. And the people that surround them during that early journey, helping them get smart, they don't want to fill out their name in a marketing form on the web. And in the last couple of weeks, Google has eliminated cookies and targeting. Apple has updated all of our phones with targeting and tracking turned off. So now we're in an era where these people who want to be anonymous through the early journey can be. And so you may lose a deal before knowing there ever was a deal. And this is one of the major changes. So if you look at the way they buy is also changing pretty significantly. We've talked about the future of resell and how money changes hands in these type of environments. Well, product-led growth got a big boost during the pandemic. Companies like Zoom and Slack and Dropbox and others that follow this model that, at some point as a consumer, you have to put in your credit card number. And that's the model that they use their product to go to market. Direct to consumer, we know a lot of these buying behaviors and demographics are driving the future of buying to have business buyers look a lot like consumers. So in the way you buy today as a consumer is going to start to move in. And these type of consumption models, if you're ordering toner for your printer, paper, these type of things are just set it and forget it. And we're seeing more D2C models take place around the industry right now. The growth of subscription and consumption models, which I'll talk about in a minute, usage-based models, is taking effect. And then obviously the growth of marketplaces. Last year, there was more growth in the first 3 months of the pandemic in marketplaces than the last 10 years combined. So this is, again, changing a lot of different parts of how we interact with customers, how we find new customers, and how we help them work through that early journey to the point of vendor selection and purchase, and then long-term in a subscription model, that work never ends. The second major trend, if I go back to this future of work, if work is something you do and not a place you go, the traditional network topology changes and how companies work with that changes. The first elements last year that we all participated in as essential workers was getting everyone a laptop, getting everyone a UCAS account, basically getting everyone productive about 14 months ago so that they could work in this environment, which no one knew how long it would take and what the outcomes would be. But the conversations right now are changing in a big way. This new topology created a whole new set of threat vectors. It created a whole new set of zero trust and how you would approach security in this residential style network. It obviously changed in terms of the way you thought about productivity and efficiency and effectiveness of those people. It changed the way you think about remote work and compliance and governance and continuity. All these things are becoming part of the conversation. And all of that leads to very strong growth on the partner side in terms of having this enterprise level IT conversation about managing a new topology versus the year ago, we were just scrambling to make everyone efficient and effective and get companies surviving through those early days. Also, big changes happening in managed services and the broader channel as well. The industry, managed services industry, is about 20 years old, The overall channel, if you go back to August the 12th, 1981, IBM's first PC, is about 40 years old, just coming up this year. And so over time, this industry is maturing as well and getting a lot of oversight. So for example, one of the areas that we're watching closely is private equity and venture capital getting much more involved. A lot more roll-ups, a lot more mergers and acquisitions. We're starting to watch now around the world some of the deeper benchmark reports of how these businesses run. A quarter of these businesses are not making money, and a quarter of them are struggling to break even. So it's not as profitable as it may have been 10 years ago. And so running a more efficient and effective company becomes paramount, especially as you're competing with some of these bigger roll-ups. And serving that customer in a ceiling price around managed services, you have to be more selective in terms of the services you offer and the vendors that you offer inside that portfolio. And we're starting to see some movement, like we saw in Europe with GDPR years and years ago in marketing. We're starting to see some movement now in the United States around compliance and regulation. And this is, started in Louisiana, but it's starting to trickle out to other states. We're starting to see some of these conversations now happen in Europe around security. And can an MSP or a VAR or a channel partner of any type be liable if there is a breach? And what are the notification requirements? All this is changing in our industry, which really had a low bar in terms of any kind of compliance before this. So we're seeing that a lot of changes. And we know that MSPs today that are surveyed by CompTIA, that skills are the number one factor over the next few years. And this is one of the reasons why, why clients are having difficulty in looking to outsource some or all of their security and their IT, is because they can't get access either. So rolling up the best talent and driving it becomes critical. And the last trend I'll leave you with is around business disruption overall. 76% of every company in every industry, in every geography, of every size is thinking about transformation. They think their current business model will be unrecognizable in 4 years. That's according to Accenture. And so when I jump out of the industry for a moment and talk about a forklift manufacturer in Europe who added an Internet of Things device to each forklift, what's interesting is this becomes an ecosystem problem. And of those 76% of companies, ecosystem was the number one reason why for the business model changes. And so by adding an Internet of Things device and sending out 1,000 data points per second, it becomes really interesting for this company where they do have hundreds of dealer network and dealers, local dealers that supply the rental and purchase of these type of products. But on their website, they look more like a tech company about digital solutions. These 1,000 data points, how much it's lifting, the temperature, the humidity, the movement, GPS coordinates. There are companies being formed around delivering value to construction, to builders, to architects, to everybody in their ecosystem. You click one more time on their website, it's the digital ecosystem for everything. At some point, you forget you're talking about a forklift and you're talking about this outcome of bigger, better, faster, cheaper buildings. So this is now a technology company who happens to build forklifts on the side. And they've changed their perspective. And you see vendors of all types as they become technology companies. As your customers become more technology driven in how they work, you'll see that it moves a little bit away from revenue and profit and customer sat, which it has been forever. And they start talking about value creation. 1 + 1 = 3. They talk about co-innovation. This idea of coming together with 1,000 data points, the new 825,000 software companies that are going to be incubated and invested in over the next decade, and basically invented, will be around all of these data points and really driving business outcomes. And you become a big part of a seat at that table. And then the network effects. It's not just a dealer network in the construction industry anymore. People like VARs and MSPs, big vendors, and everyone becomes part of this conversation and part of the security conversation and everything else that goes on here. So it's really blowing up everywhere. And getting into these conversations is really important. So if I go back to the very beginning again, the complexity, there may be 35 million customers in the middle, thinking through some outcomes that obviously have multiple layers of security attached to it. to make them successful. And we're starting to predict now who is sitting at those 5 seats around the table that help influence them in terms of what they should be buying, the building blocks in terms of vendor selection, how they transact. And then because it's subscription and consumption models now and usage-based models, every 30 days forever, how that technology gets adopted, how that technology gets integrated and builds stickiness, how that technology gets upsold and cross-sold, and that contract gets enriched every 30 days forever in a journey now that never ends. There's a lot of seats at the table. There's an opportunity for partners to build out your own ecosystem. Go meet that digital agency, go meet that accountant, go meet that system integrator, go meet those ISVs in the space around your customer. Go meet some of those emerging tech, like Internet of Things in this example. There's a lot of people. And if you come together, you can actually invent a lot of the future. What's interesting is as you start to serve that customer with this new innovation, you'll look around and say, there's forklift companies around the world. There are broader construction companies around the world that could take on and build out these ecosystems as well. This is kind of the future of innovation here. And all these millions and millions of components have very deep levels of security that's required, compliance, regulation, legislation, governance, and other things that are involved in all of this. These are where the opportunities are, up and above just infrastructure within each of these companies and managing each of their devices. This goes much deeper into the business model. So thank you for having me, and thank you for walking through some of these trends. I'd like to hand it back now to Magnus.
Thank you, Jay. Now, I take to my heart the end demands and, of course, the trends you showed in there. I think it's going to be useful for the road ahead. Now, here to introduce the list for our final award category, Market Makers, I once again give this stage to Ashley. Take it away, Ashley.
Magnus, thank you. And finally, we have our last category, Market Makers. We launched this category a few years back when we were talking about the evolution of managed services. And you, as a partner community, have made great strides in the success of managed services. But we can only have 3 nominations. First, we have Monaco Digital. They've moved from a consultancy business through to a full portfolio of security services. Second, we have Telia Immix Nebula. They really were the pioneers with F-Secure around the managed services and the development of our portfolio, and have seen fantastic growth over the last few years. And third, we have Admire in Denmark, who have taken a traditional technology company and evolved into a cybersecurity services company. So you will find out very shortly now who the winners are. But before we do that, I'd like to say thank you to all of you for your performance in the last year. And again, it's been such a difficult year for all of us with the COVID pandemic. But the performance has just been outstanding. And as difficult as it is to pick 3 winners, I'd just like to say thank you to all of you for everything that you've done. So without any delay, I will say good luck, and I will see you next time. Magnus, back to you, sir.
Thank you, Ashley. All the nominees are in exciting times. We'll shortly find out who wins what. But before then, it's time to listen to Finland's national treasure, F-Secure's very own Mikko Hyppönen. Here today to talk about his views and ideas about where we are in the cybersecurity world and where we are heading. It is a pleasure and a privilege for me to introduce my friend, mighty Mikko Hyppönen.
Thanks for joining us today. I've learned a lot of different lessons during my 30 years with F-Secure. Lessons about how users always make mistakes, lessons about how patching is hard. But I think one of the most core lessons there is to learn is that complexity is the enemy of security. We've always had bugs in the code of the systems that we run. Programs are being written by human beings, and human beings make mistakes. However, today when everything is interconnected, those bugs become vulnerabilities. They become vulnerabilities which can be exploited by attackers. And the more code we have, the more room we have for errors, more room for bugs, more vulnerabilities, more things to exploit. So the more we have code, the more we have protocols, the more we have features in the systems we use, the more vulnerable we are. And this is not a theoretical problem. Did you know that Windows 10, the current version of Windows, is 1,000 times larger than Windows 95? In fact, Windows 10 is built from 5.7 million source files. Source files. I don't mean 5.7 million lines of code. 5.7 million source code files. I actually confirmed this with Microsoft. We're speaking about massively large systems. And if we really would like to fight complexity with every new release of every operating system, every application, every mobile app, we would be reducing features. But that's not what we're doing at all. We're increasing features, increasing complexity, increasing layers, increasing the attack surface. And the enemy, the attackers, they know this very well. That's why they are targeting systems which are becoming more and more complex. And managing security for these systems is getting harder as well. And this is why we at F-Secure have been so hard at work in bringing simplicity and bringing management easier to the fingertips of our users. Sometimes attackers can't reach the targets they want to reach. And for the last couple of months, we've all seen headlines about supply chain attacks. Attacks like SolarWinds or CodeCov, or maybe even the attacks against Microsoft Exchange server systems. You see, in many of these cases, the background of the attack is that the attacker tried to gain access to a specific target and failed because the target had done their homework. They were not easily breachable. So the attacker went looking for a technology being used by the target so that if they would be able to breach some technology used by the target, eventually the target could be breached through them. This is why SolarWinds was being targeted by most likely Chinese nation-state-based attackers. They needed to find a way into a target organization, and since the target was for them unbreachable, they went after SolarWinds instead, assuming that sooner or later the client would update their SolarWinds software and become breachable by themselves. CodeCov is something similar as far as we know. And for the last couple of weeks, the amount of attacks we've seen through Microsoft Exchange-based systems have just been going through the roof. And if you're trying to defend your networks against a nation-state attacker, well, that's really hard. The good news is most organizations are not being targeted by nation-states. They're being targeted by criminals. And when we look at the methods organized online crime gangs nowadays use to make a lot of money, it revolves around two phenomena. Ransomware, especially ransomware version 2, and business email compromise attacks. And the biggest shift in ransomware over the last 7 years has happened over the last 12 months. This is the shift where attackers have realized that more and more of the victims have full backups of the data. So even if you breach a network, you reach all the servers, all the workstations, and you encrypt everything and then demand a payment to get a decryption key, some companies don't have to pay because they have full daily backups of everything and they've rehearsed their restoration process. This is what has led ransomware gangs to migrating to ransomware version 2. It's the same idea. They breach a network, they encrypt the servers, But if the company doesn't pay, then the gang informs them that we've also copied all of your files, and if you don't pay us, we will publish your information on leak sites. Leak sites like these. This is the Mount Locker and the Clop ransomware gang's leak sites, where they publish information about their victims, and if the victims don't pay, then they will publish their information. And this is the reason why we've seen so many ransomware gangs migrate from earlier mechanisms to version 2. This was started in January 2020 by the Maze ransomware gang from Russia, and this was so successful that the gang actually retired in October 2020. And we've seen a multitude of gangs follow their example, and this is also the reason why we've seen so many organizations and companies pay multi-million-dollar ransoms. We always tell companies, don't pay the ransom. The more companies pay the ransom, the bigger the problem becomes. And that's really easy for me to say, and sometimes it's really hard for companies to do. One of the reasons companies end up paying ransom is that they realize that it's not just their corporate agreements and dealings and patent applications which would be made public. It's also their email exchange, including things like their employees emailing corporate healthcare about private health issues. No company wants that kind of information to be posted publicly on the internet. And this is the reason why we've seen so many publicly listed billion-dollar-sized companies pay the ransoms over the last 12 months, including companies like Garmin or Campari or Brown-Forman, which is very close to all the hearts of us Finns because they own the Finlandia vodka brand nowadays. And I think even better example on how much money is being moved around by these ransomware attackers is what happened with Tesla. An IT administrator at the Tesla Gigafactory in Texas was approached by a foreign hacker offering him $1 million for a very simple task. Accept a USB thumb drive, bring it into the Texas Gigafactory and plug it into one internal machine. That's it. You do that and you get paid $1 million. The IT employee at Tesla didn't do it. No, instead he went to report it to his superiors, who worked together with the FBI to arrest the Russian hacker who was offering the $1 million. I'd like to think that the IT employee at Tesla got a $1 million bonus for doing the right thing, but we actually don't know if he did. And when we speak about victims of ransomware operations, well, you might know this game, Cyberpunk 2077, one of the hit games of the year. What you might not know is that CD Projekt Red is the company behind this game. It's a Polish company, and they were hit with a massively large ransomware operation right as they were in the middle of releasing this game. This is the kind of attacks we see, where attackers look for companies which are especially vulnerable for disruptions of their services. The amount of money these gangs make with their online crimes is massive. We don't know exactly how massive, but we have some kind of an idea by following the amounts of ransom demands they send or the Bitcoin movements in blockchain or for things like these. This is a clip from a Ukrainian law enforcement video where they raid the headquarters of the Emotet gang, which has been involved in multiple different ransomware operations. You can see the law enforcement counting the dollar bills they are confiscating and counting the gold bars they are confiscating. And they always say that crime doesn't pay. Obviously, it pays very well. Another good example on how crime pays is when we look at the money being made with business email compromise attacks. Business email compromise or CEO scams make more money than ransomware operations. The amount of money is nicely illustrated in the Instagram feed of Mr. Raymond Abbas, this guy right here. From his Instagram, we can see that he lives a nice life with Rolls Royces in Monaco, in Dubai, and in his home country of Nigeria. He's originally from Lagos. He has been involved in multiple different money laundering operations linked to business email compromise scams. And once again, crime seems to be paying very well. But the happy ending here can be seen from this video clip released by the law enforcement of United Arab Emirates, where they are raiding a 5-star luxury hotel in Dubai, arresting Raymond, who since has been extradited to New Jersey, where he is right now waiting his trial. But it's not just about technology. It's also about the users. As we've learned during the pandemic year, users are easy to fool. When you somehow confuse users or scare them, they are not really paying attention to what's happening. They will think that something weird is going on, and then they can be fooled. Say basic psychological tricks. And when user is fooled, he's not thinking straight. And the attackers know this. They know this. That's why they are able to fool users to pay attention to the wrong thing. Users click on the wrong link, end up getting owned. Basic psychological tricks. And when we are successful in defending our end users and implementing all the safeguards we want to implement, the end result is that nothing happens. The end result is that there are no data leaks, there are no data breaches, there are no malware outbreaks. The end result is that nobody even notices we did anything. That's the way it works. So if we want to be able to secure the systems we use ourselves and our clients and customers use, we have to be able to reduce complexity. We have to be able to manage complex environments in as simple way as possible. And this is the thing we've been paying so much attention over the last years at F-Secure. Simplifying security, reducing complexity, simplifying the way we can provide security for you and for your end users. Thank you.
Thank you, Mikko. What an amazing talk. See, I told you, Finland's national treasure, F-Secure's very own Mikko Hyppönen. Now I'd like to introduce Juha back to the stage to see who wins what in this year's awards ceremony. Take it away, Juha.
We are almost coming to the final moments of this year's Species event. Let's focus now on who are the real stars of today. You, our partners. We have heard today exciting partner cases in the commercial track, and we also have had Ashley presenting all the nominations for this year's Partner Award winners. Big applause still to all of the nominees. And now I have the pleasure of announcing the winners. The winner for Best Performance category is Sky Incorporated from Japan. Please join me in congratulating them, and here to receive the award, Toyama-san.
Thank you, Juha. はじめまして、スカイの富山と申します。今回、このような賞をいただき、誠にありがとうございます。私は社内でいろいろなソリューションの企画を担当してまして、昨年度ギガスクール構想という日本の小中学校の児童生徒たちに一人一台のタブレット機器を提供するという大きなプロジェクトがあり、その企画の立案から担当してました。単純にタブレットの配布だけでは現場はいろいろと混乱すると思い、安心と安全をコンセプトに作り上げたのが、今回企画したスカイ安心ギガタブレットというものになります。その中で、子供たちが不用意に危ないサイトにアクセスしないよう、ウェブフィルタリングやマルウェア感染しないように、F-Secure 様の、PSB はなくてはならないツールとして、協業させていただきました。F-Secure 様とは、数年前からの付き合いがあり、これまでと同じくいろいろと私の希望を聞いていただきました。今後も、今回の教育マーケット以外で、新たなビジネススキームを御社と築いていきたいと思っておりますので、何卒よろしくお願いいたします。
Thank you. Moving on to the next category, Growth Champion. And the winner for the category is Iliane from France. Joining us today, we have Monsieur Eddy Lenenes from Iliane.
Merci Juha. Nous sommes fiers d'être récompensés par notre partenaire F-Secure pour cette croissance 2020. Cet award vient mettre en exergue nos réalisations communes, l'investissement des équipes qu'elles soient F-Secure ou Ilian. C'est une belle récompense pour nous. J'en profite sincèrement pour remercier les équipes françaises d'F-Secure. J'envoie un clin d'œil par la même occasion à Sébastien et à Julien qui nous soutiennent au quotidien. C'est vraiment une très belle récompense pour nous. Un grand merci à F-Secure.
Thank you, Eddie. And the final category is market makers, detection and response. Partners who are on the forefront in bringing managed security services to their customers. And the winner is Telia Inmix Nebula.
Thank you, Juha and F-Secure. I'm honored to be here to receive this award on behalf of Telia Inmix Nebula. We have a great security specialist team who have been keen to learn and develop new things to our customers and walk extra mile to keep their environments secure. Our competent product specialists are working daily basis with our salespersons close to customers and aim to find the right solution for the customer needs and continuously changing cyber threats. These people have been our success factor, growth the F-Secure rapid detection response business during 2020. Our story and cooperation with F-Secure has been long, and we have had radar over 5 years on our product portfolio, and our joint effort with rapid detection response product line started already 2018. Once again, thank you for the recognition, cooperations, and we are really looking forward to growth this cooperation during this and following years. Thank you.
Please join in congratulating all the winners once more. And that's not all. This year we have one more final award. I would like to introduce our Special Alliance Award for Salesforce. F-Secure has been working in close collaboration with Salesforce to protect their customers, employees, and user communities. Together, we have combined to deliver an integrated solution to a number of leading Fortune 500 companies globally. And we have experienced unprecedented growth in demand for our service. We would like to give Salesforce this award in recognition of their commitment and our close working relationship to making this success happen. Please join me in congratulating Salesforce in winning this award and welcome Chris Hemingway, their Regional Vice President, ISV Sales, who would like to say a few words. Chris, you there?
Hi, Juha, yes. And on behalf of Salesforce, thank you so much for this award. It really is truly exciting. We've had an amazing year ahead on growth together. And what's really impressing with me is our shared value of trust in the way in which we've been working together to build innovative solutions to really bring value and trust to our customers. We've had an exciting year of growth and we see a tremendous year ahead, bringing value to our customers. And again, thank you to Team F-Secure for your innovation and working with Salesforce and Team AppExchange to help us bring and deliver value to our mutual customers. We wish you a great year ahead. And again, to everybody who's been part of this conference, I hope you've had a great time. And again, Juha and team, big thank you. Let's do it again next year.
Congratulations to all the winners and to all the nominees. And what a fantastic F-Secure SPECIES21 it's been. Everything from Mikko Hyppänen's talk to the talk by Forrester. We've seen the launch of Elements and, of course, the breakouts. Thank you for being a part of this day. To close things out, I'd like to give the stage back to Juha, and I look forward to seeing you next year.
Species is all about collaboration and growing together. So thank you all for the great collaboration. We will continue working hard to keep on earning your trust. I hope to be able to see you all face to face soon. Thank you.